The title of today's class is called Christian Sharia. And I want to make a shout out I just want to say something as a precursor, especially to Christians. This is not an attack on Christianity at all. And what I'm going to do is talk about Christianity and Islam, and Rafi is back, and Rafi is going to say a few things as well about Sharia law. And I want to make a comparison here, and I think it's a valuable comparison, and I think it's one that's really certainly one that will be rather illuminating. It's one that you don't really think about. You know, like the way we live our lives, that a lot of times we're like fish in the water, that the fish is the last species to really understand water, to know what water is, what it's about, what it feels like, etc., because the fish is in it. The fish lives its whole life in water, so you don't really see it. And a lot of times in our own cultures, there are certain things we just don't see till we either get outside the culture or till somebody from outside the culture comes in and points some things out to us. So I'm going to be pointing some things out today, particularly to Christians, but also to Muslims. Everybody else, you all can participate, but this is where we're at. So I want to talk about Islamic Sharia law. Now, Sharia, if you're paying attention at all, you know that you hear this term, Sharia law, Muslims, Sharia law. It's generally seen in the West as a really negative thing. How many times have I heard Donald Trump or other people in certain positions of power in our government talk about how Muslims want to come here and impose Sharia law on us? I'm not sure, we can talk about how Muslims in the United States that represent a tiny fraction of the U.S. population are going to impose Sharia law on the rest of the country, but that's the idea. It's negative. It's seen as bad, and Sharia law is seen in a really negative way. It's very harsh. It's old school. It's very traditional. It's very mean-spirited. It's like in the Christian way. It's sort of very Old Testament-like. It's very anti-women. It's not progressive. It's very backwards looking. If the thief steals something, you get their hand cut off. These kinds of things, and that men can divorce women. All they have to say is, I divorce you 3 times, and they get divorced. All these things that are out there in the common parlance. And we say, like, okay, well, that's Sharia law. Like, Sharia law exists as some sort of very codified legal doctrine. And I want to just give you I want to talk about this sociologically and get a sense of what Sharia law is. This is the Quran. And the Quran is a book that's very similar, if you've never read the Quran, it's very similar to the New Testament for those of you who are Christians. And I speak as a sociologist. When I read the New Testament and I read the Quran, it's really not that different in general terms. Okay? Abraham is a holy person in the Quran. Jesus is a holy person. I think Jesus is mentioned more times in the Quran as a holy man than Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the Quran is a book that largely, like the Old Testament, is a book of stories. It's a book of fables, a book of stories. It's a book of teachings, trying to help people to understand how to live a life, how to live in this world, how to get on in this world, moral precepts, ethical precepts, ways of seeing how the world got to be this way, where we came from, in other words, what we're doing here, and where we're going. That's what the Quran is about. It's really it's filled with quite beautiful stories, to be honest with you. It's quite amazing. The Quran is also a very complex book. It's not very long. It's not very big, you see. Because there are also lots of things in the Quran that anybody could agree or disagree with. If I ever wrote a book that was this long, there would be lots of things you would agree with and disagree with and so on and so forth, right? Think like, well, I'll take that little piece, but that statement over there, I'll discard that. And, whatever it is, just like my classes, I talk. Some things I say, you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And other things I say, you say, that doesn't make sense at all. Wait as we go through the whole semester when I say more and more and more. So now imagine using the Quran, this book right here. It's not very big. So that means there's not much in it. Imagine using this Quran to establish a system of law that's going to adjudicate all of the legal issues that human beings have. All of them. It's this big, you all, right? And so, I don't know, your neighbor's dog comes over and keeps pooping on your lawn. And you're saying, I got to stop my neighbor from doing that. All right, let's go through the Quran and see. No, it's not in there. DUI, right? Okay, it says something about drinking, but it doesn't say drinking and driving. Like, okay, driving too fast. I don't know, we can go on and on and on. How many different ways I could steal something? If I see a paper clip on this table up here that's not mine and I put it in my pocket, is that stealing? Well, does the Quran say? Well, it doesn't really say that. Well, I don't know, so maybe it is, maybe it's not. And then somebody else reads it and says, well, no, because you could interpret this right there. Look, go to page 199 and Surah 4, and you work through it. And that would, my interpretation of the paperclip is that, yes, you are stealing if you take that paperclip. It's not yours. And somebody else says, you're out of your mind. And then suddenly we're back and forth, arguing about how this book could possibly adjudicate all of the grievances and all the legal issues that human beings would have. It's really, really difficult. It's very difficult. Sharia law, what it is taking this book and saying, look, it's filled with a lot of stories. It's filled with some really, really good, generally speaking, ideas about ethics and moralities and way to get on in the world. We're going to use this as a general template to move us forward, to help us to, in a general sense, understand how to live our lives. A general sense. That's it. But we're not going to get much out of it because it's not very long. But we're going to use it anyway, and this is Sharia law.